Well, happy Monday again, my savage badger peeps. And also, I'm going to say it, happy fall, happy autumn. Yes, it's officially official. Summer has now come to an end. And there's a little pain in my heart, but that's okay. That's okay. I am, ready to move into this next season and, embrace it and, I mean, because, that is, that's what growth is all about. And I want to actually lead into today's Monday with just that quote. Growth is the art of becoming unrecognizable to your former self without apology. Unknown. Now, let's be real. Growth isn't always this graceful, Instagram filtered process where you're sipping your matcha in a sunbeam while journaling about your journey. It's sometimes it's messy, it's chaotic, it's like gross and difficult and has ugly crying that goes along with it. Sometimes it's awkward, sometimes it's just you standing in the middle of your kitchen, and realizing that you don't even like the things that you used to fight to keep in your life, or you're questioning all kinds of things. And that's the point, right? It's You're not here to stay you know, palatable to your past. You're here to shed skins, to move into the next season, right? Like moving from summer to fall, burning old scripts and, walking into rooms your former self wouldn't even recognize without apologizing how much for how much you've changed. And, you know, that people who, knew you, back then might tilt their heads and squint and, it's like they're looking at you and trying to reconcile that the you they remember with the you standing in front of them, right? It's like kind of like who the heck is this, right? And you're going to get some pushback. People will say things like, "Oh, you've changed," or "You're not the same person you were." And actually, that's fine. You know, you're not a museum exhibit. Like, and you're not here to be preserved in some amber for other people's comfort. That's actually, when somebody says that to you, that can actually be a compliment. And there's this myth of staying the same. Like, we've been sold this really weird, quite honestly, stupid cultural lie that staying true to yourself means never changing, right? But here's the thing, two things. If there's one thing that's certain in our world, our life, is change. Change happens, right? And another one is yourself isn't a fixed point. It's a living, breathing, evolving thing. And staying the same isn't loyalty, it's just flat out stagnation. There's no growth. And I want you to think about this like, the version of you from 5 years ago, from 2 years ago, 1 year, from last week, yesterday, even, you know, didn't know what you know now, right? They hadn't fought the battles that you've fought, or learned the lessons that you've learned, or built the resilience that you carry today, right in this moment. Why would you let that version of you dictate who you are allowed to become? And Wayne Dyer, he always, talked about that, how like who you were, even who you were 10 minutes ago, like you're not the same. Change and evolution, it is constant, whether we realize it or not. Now, this week, I just want to roll straight into my hot badger tips. Last week, I really went off. I had a lot of notes and, a lot of things going on. So I want to keep this week, as short and simple as possible to help you roll into this epic day, this epic week, and, every day hereafter. So here are my hot badger tips for unapologetic growth. And, again, this isn't BS. This isn't, your little Pinterest board platitudes, which there's nothing wrong with that because I enjoy Pinterest, right? These though they're that gritty, glittery, feral, epic moves that keep you evolving without getting stuck in what will people think mode, quicksand. It's like mental quicksand, right? So number one, audit your habits. So you can do this. You can ask yourself, would the old me do this? And if the answer is yes, and it's not in a good way, it might be time to upgrade. It might be time for that next 10.0 version, right? Because old habits are like outdated apps running in the background, draining your energy, taking up unnecessary space, right? Delete what no longer serves you. Number two, the second hot badger tip, stop over explaining your evolution. This one, I'm going to say two. This one is the most important one. You don't know, no, I can't even talk. You don't owe anyone a TED talk about, why you've changed or why you're making the decisions that you are. Let your results speak because they will. Let your energy speak because it will. Let your life speak because it will. And the people who get it, they'll get it. And the ones who don't, well, they're not your audience anymore. And that's okay. Number three, the third hot badger tip, curate your circle. So again, proximity principle. I have talked about this a lot. Keep the people who clap when you win, not the ones who, are going to be nostalgic for your smaller self, right? Growth can be lonely if you're surrounded by folks who only, love the old you. And, it's time to find the ones who are excited to meet the next you. And if you're lucky enough to have a circle that, is excited for all of the things that you are doing and who you become, that is so totally dope. And, I'm lucky enough to have that in my circle, but again, the proximity principle, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So are they elevating you, or are they crabs in a bucket that are constantly pulling you back and down to be, less than below average? So the fourth hot badger tip, mark your milestones. This one's huge and something that I'm always going to, carry over. You're going to hear, and you probably have heard many times in the past, but don't just blow past your wins, right? Take a photo. Maybe it's for recording a voice note, writing, me, I'm a big fan of pen to paper, right? Light a candle, do something to honor the fact that you are not who you used to be, right? That's worth celebrating, that growth, that, empowered positive movement forward. So I also want to talk about, the awkward middle. It's the part that not many people will talk about. It's the in-between phase where you've outgrown your old self, but you haven't fully stepped into the new one, right? It's like you're in limbo and it feels uncomfortable because you're totally aware of both of the things that are going on. The old self that you're releasing, shedding, molting from, right? And the new self that you are growing into. And you might feel like you're wearing clothes that don't fit yet, right? And that's normal. That's the chrysalis stage, if you will. Butterflies don't just pop out of their cocoons in like, a happy 24 hours or whatever. Like they they stew inside of that for a while, and it's going to, for lack of a better way to describe it, it's going, it's dissolving into goo, before they rebuild into something unrecognizable. And you're allowed to be the goo for a little bit of time, but don't stay there, right? The other thing, and I talked about this in my lighthouse theory episode, you don't need permission. And why don't you need permission? Every time you evolve, you risk losing people. That's just a fact. And it's just something that we need to be prepared for, right? As best as we can. And it's not a tragedy. It's just a filter, right? It's an audit. And the ones who stay are the ones who are meant to walk with you, into that next chapter of your life. And the rest, they're part of your origin story, if you will, not your sequel. And here's the kicker to all of this is you don't need to make your growth palatable, digestible for anyone else, right? You don't need to soften your edges or dim your light so people from your past can still quote unquote relate to you or hang on to that, or even like just to placate their insecurities, right? Now, I want to talk about the energy shift that will also happen. When you stop apologizing for your growth, something really like wild and epic and dynamic and like deliciously juicy happens, right? You stop chasing validation. You start attracting people and opportunities that match your new frequency, your energetic vibe, right? That you're putting out, the boomerang effect, what you are throwing out is going to come back to you. And you realize that the version of who you once begged, for permission is gone and you don't miss them. So, you know, here's your Monday morning challenge, right? Now, again, I know I gave you a challenge last week, the stretch, that 1 month stretch challenge. But this week, I want you to do one thing your old self would never have done. So maybe it's, and this could be, you could stack this on to what your stretch goal that you picked for last week, right? Signing up for a class or saying no without explaining yourself or wear the outfit. I'm seeing this a lot on social media. I swear to God, sometimes like social media for all of the good things that I see, sometimes I swear it takes like 20 steps back for all of the idiocy that I see. But critiquing what girls wear to the gym now. Like, is that really what your time, that's where you're devoting your time to talking about that? So you know what? Here's my big FU to all of that shit. Wear the fucking outfit. Just do it, right? Also, post the thing, like, and then mark it. Write it down. Like, take the picture, tell future you, like, this was the day that I stopped asking for permission to grow. Put that on a post-it note and put that somewhere that you are going to be able to see that, whether it's in a room where you walk past all the time, bathroom mirror, something like that. So it's a constant, reminder to you of the power that you actually have and the growth that you're making. So growth isn't about becoming a shinier version of your old self. It's about becoming someone that your old self wouldn't even recognize, right? And it's doing it without apology. So here's your reminder. You're not here to stay palatable to your past. You're here to, shed, to molt skins and to rewrite your story and walk boldly into the rooms of your former self, you know, wouldn't even have imagined that you would be doing. So don't just go through life, grow through life.